Well, Congress has a lot on its plate when it reconvenes. Some of the issues include the recently approved budget deal and the selection of a super committee to determine the next round of cuts.
Lawmakers are also confronting a lack of funding for the FAA and the controversy over a program called Fast and Furious, which targets Mexican drug cartels. Joining us now to talk about some of these pressing problems is Congressman Darrell Issa. Congressman, thanks for talking with us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I think all of the subjects you just teed up are extremely important. Obviously, the FAA is an interesting one because the Senate could have sent back a 30-day extension, but Senator Reid has the power to say, no, I'm going to have it my way, or I'm going to have those $3,700 per ticket subsidies in Ely, Nevada, or I'm not going to do this. You know, one of the problems I see as a congressman is that we're all one Congress, the House and the Senate. But if the House does something wrong, they say the House did it wrong. When the Senate does something wrong, they say Congress did something wrong.
And the bottom line, though, it's not a good time to be putting thousands of people out of work right now.
It's a terrible time not to collect revenue that people are used to delivering, that is a fee that pays for a service. And these layoffs are coming from a fee that should be collected. And it's unfortunate because it got swamped by the debt discussion. The debt discussion was a good one because it has led to both some temporary or some shorter cuts, $1 trillion, and the idea that we're going to form a committee that's really going to look at hard decisions, including Medicare and even including, if necessary, some defense spending. And that's a step in the right direction. Nothing can be off the table if we're going to get rid of the kind of deficits we've been running.
This super committee that will be convening, I guess they'll announce it in a couple of weeks who's going to be on that committee. They really have their work cut out for them. And what makes you think they're not going to have some stalemate? I know there are incentives to get the job done this time.
Well, the incentives are, there's a stick over both Republicans and Democrats because Medicare could be on the table. That's a big stick for Democrats in their view. Because defense is on the table, that's a big stick for Republicans. But more importantly, these are, in my opinion, modest. $2 trillion. $2 trillion sounds like a lot of money until, first of all, you remember it's over 10 years. So it's $200 billion into a $3.4 trillion budget. These are cuts that, as a percentage of our total budget, should be easily doable when you look back and say, if the day President Obama came into office, we had said the amount of money you have is all the money you're going to have, we'd already have cut more than that. If you simply stopped increasing spending faster than inflation on the day that President Obama was sworn in, we'd have made cuts more draconian than we're talking about. So are these tough? Yes. Would they be tough in your personal life or in mine? Not at all.
How difficult is it going to be to pick a super committee? Obviously 12 members, 6 from the Republicans, 6 from Democrats. Tea Party guys want to be in on that thing too. Democrats are saying no way that is this going to happen because it's going to cause gridlock. So is this super committee going to come down to point blank gridlock? And if that happens, some really bizarre things begin to kick in from the standpoint of budget problems.
Well, as a House member, I have to sort of break it down. There's just going to be 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. So within the area of the side of the Capitol that I work on, we only have 3 people. I can tell you they're not going to be people who voted no on the compromise, and they are going to be people who want to achieve at least that $2 trillion in savings. So Paul Ryan would be easy to understand why he would be there, and the 2 others we'll see whether it's Eric Cantor and maybe Dave Camp or who, but I think they're going to be chairman level. They're going to be people who have the faith of the entire conference. They're not going to be people who voted no out of stubbornness because there's never enough cut for them. At the same time, they've got to be people who aren't going to cut and run and say, well, can't we all just get along? Let's have a tax increase. That's not in the making.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays with the 2012 elections and the voters, because every decision that is made by the super panel, it's going to be a big deal.
It is, but let's remember the super panel should come up with $4 trillion of cuts. Maybe they only do $2 trillion, but they should be looking far beyond just the cuts. I'll give you an example. My committee supervises the post office. We lost $8.5 billion this last year. And on $75 billion, that's a lot of loss. Our proposal that we'll be moving forward in September gets us to a path of $10 billion in profit. We may never achieve that, but if we don't overshoot losing money and get into the positive, we're never going to get to a break-in or pay off the nearly $20 billion the post office owes the American people right now. So there's a lot of these things where you have to overachieve just to get to your goal. And when it comes to cutting the size of government, they're going to have to be willing to make tough decisions in the early years, not just in the out years.
Before we get to the next topic, the Fast and Furious program, one quick question on that super panel. Who decides who's on that committee?
The leaders of each party. So Nancy Pelosi in the House, Speaker Boehner in the House, Mitchell and Reid in the Senate. And those characteristics are going to tell a lot. You know, Nancy Pelosi is going to pick the people she trusts that are team players for her. Obviously, the Speaker is going to pick 3 people that you already kind of know because they're currently, it'll be probably from chairman. The Senate is a different sort of ball of wax. Is it going to be part of the so-called Gang of Six? I hope not, because the Gang of Six came in with a kind of a half-baked proposal without the numbers solidly at the 11th hour, and they said, look, we can compromise. Well, you can't have that. These have to be hard numbers. They have to be verifiable. They have to be scored. And I'm hoping that people as serious as Paul Ryan will be on that committee saying, look, you think you have numbers? Let's go get them scored. Let's make sure they're real, because we can't promise one thing and deliver less to the American people.
And we did want to mention Fast and Furious, the NRA expected to file a lawsuit with all of this. Maybe you can kind of set it up for us and tell us where it's at.
The NRA is tired of being targeted by people who are saying they need more gun control, when in fact we not only didn't control the guns, our U.S. government agents let these guns walk, and this program might have continued even longer if the U.S. Border Patrol.
It's been a real debacle.
Well, Brian Terry's family certainly understands, and Jaime Zepeda, 2 U.S. agents whose families saw their loved ones gunned down, understand they were gunned down with weapons that never should have been sold. The actual gun shops reported to ATF, hey, these are straw buyers. We don't want to have them have the guns. They were told by Justice Department through the ATF, go ahead and sell them, we're going to track them. They didn't track them. They're just the opposite. They let them walk and waited for them to show up at the scene of crime.
So what do you do? Do you put a stop to that program, or how do you...
Look, it is already illegal to let drugs walk. The U.S. Attorney's Office there and now the Justice Department is trying to say, well, they didn't walk. We didn't know they were going to these gangs. Well, we have evidence showing they did know they were going there, that they deliberately let them walk, which to us means they committed a crime, and we've got to get the Justice Department to show us how this crime will never be committed again, ever. You cannot let guns go to the bad guys. That's what our laws are for, is for law-abiding citizens to have a right to get a weapon, and for felons and criminals not to.
Congressman Issa, thanks so much for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Serious subjects.
Yeah.
Thanks again.